The night was quiet, the kind of silence that stretches out over long highways and sleepy towns. Captain Marcus Reed was driving home from the base, his uniform neatly pressed but hidden beneath a plain jacket. The weight of deployment still lingered, muscles sore, mind buzzing with memories of distant places and difficult decisions. His headlights cut through the darkness, the hum of the engine a steady companion on the Tulane road. The moon hung low, casting silver shadows over the asphalt. Marcus's hands gripped the steering wheel with practiced ease. He was used to vigilance, trained to stay alert even in moments of calm. Tonight felt calm, until it didn't. Behind him, flashing blue lights split the darkness like lightning. He eased to the shoulder, heart rate quickening, not out of fear, but caution. The police cruiser pulled close, spotlight cutting through his rearview mirror. He reached for his license and ID, ready to comply. But as the officer approached, tension radiated like heat. Something felt off. The night was no longer quiet. It was the beginning of a moment that would shatter calm and force a reckoning. The officer's footsteps were heavy, purposeful. He shone a flashlight inside Marcus's car, eyes narrowing. "License and registration," he said, voice clipped, hands twitching near his holster. Marcus handed over his documents without hesitation. "Where are you coming from?" the officer demanded. "The base," Marcus replied calmly. "Returning from deployment." The officer's face hardened. "Step out of the vehicle." "Now." Marcus obeyed. His military training kept him calm, but the tension was thick, suffocating. He raised his hand slowly, showing no threat. But the officer's eyes stayed locked on him with suspicion. "Put your hands on the hood." Before Marcus could comply fully, the officer's grip tightened on his gun. A misheard movement. A sudden shift. A snap of fear. The officer pulled the trigger. The shot rang out, splitting the night. Marcus stumbled, clutching his chest. The officer's face twisted in shock. He had made a mistake, a deadly one, and it was too late to take it back. Marcus collapsed to the pavement, his breath ragged but his mind sharp despite the pain. His training kicked in immediately. Stay calm, control breathing, signal for help. The officer dropped to his knees beside him, shaking, eyes wide with horror. "I didn't know. I didn't see your badge," the officer stammered, fumbling to show his own ID. Marcus's gaze softened, but the wound throbbed with every heartbeat. Backup sirens wailed in the distance. Neighbors spilled from their homes, drawn by the sound of gunfire and chaos. Phones recorded every second, the officer kneeling, the fallen man clutching his chest. Paramedics arrived swiftly, working over Marcus with practiced urgency. The officer's voice cracked as he recounted the events to the dispatcher, the weight of his errors sinking in. Marcus was rushed to the hospital. The emergency room lights a harsh contrast to the quiet night he had left behind. Though wounded, his spirit remained unbroken. He whispered, "I'm a soldier. I've survived worse." But the battle was far from over. Outside the hospital, the city was awakening to a story that would demand accountability, justice, and change. News broke quickly. The body cam footage was released, showing the harrowing moments leading up to the shooting. Viewers around the nation watched in stunned silence. A decorated Black Army officer, unarmed, brought down in a split second of fear and misjudgment. Civil rights groups were swift to respond, condemning the incident and demanding immediate investigation. The military issued a statement expressing concern and support for Marcus Reed and his family. Local officials promised transparency and justice. Meanwhile, the officer who fired the shot was placed on administrative leave pending inquiry. The community, still reeling, organized vigils and protests. Candles flickered in the cool night air, voices chanting for accountability. Marcus's colleagues from the base traveled to the hospital, their uniforms a silent testament to solidarity. Inside, surgeons worked tirelessly to stabilize him. And as the world watched, the question hung heavy in the air. How could one mistake nearly cost a life? And what would it take to ensure it never happened again? The days following the shooting were a blur of hospital visits, news cycles, and rising tensions. Marcus lay in a hospital bed, bandaged but alert. His family surrounded him, a steady presence amid the chaos. Despite the physical pain, his mind was focused. He knew the fight was just beginning. The police department held press conferences, promising reforms and full cooperation. Yet the community's trust was frayed. Protests swelled outside the precinct, voices demanding justice louder than ever. Civil rights leaders called for the officer's immediate suspension and criminal charges. Meanwhile, internal affairs dug into the officer's past. A troubling record of complaints, mostly dismissed or overlooked. The officer's name became synonymous with negligence and fear. Marcus's military chain of command stood firm, vowing to support him through recovery and beyond. He had survived the bullet. Now, he was determined to survive the system. Because justice, he knew, was more than a badge. It was a responsibility, and he was ready to hold it. Public pressure intensified. Community leaders, activists, and politicians demanded transparency. The local police union, initially defensive, found itself under scrutiny. The mayor called for an independent review panel. Marcus, still recovering, released a statement. Not angry, not vengeful, but clear and firm. I am a soldier. I wear my uniform with pride, not fear. This incident is a stark reminder that the uniform should never be a target. I stand with all those who face bias and violence, and I will fight for change. His words resonated. They echoed in halls of power and across dinner tables. As the investigation unfolded, the officer faced charges ranging from excessive force to negligence. His history of misconduct was exposed, raising questions about systemic failures and oversight. Meanwhile, Marcus began physical therapy. Each step was a victory, each movement a testament to resilience. His family stood by him, a fortress of support. And through it all, Marcus held on to hope. Hope that his story would become a catalyst for reform, a call to end fear-driven violence, and a promise that no soldier, no citizen, would be mistaken for a threat ever again. The city erupted in response to the shooting. Vigils lit up parks and street corners. People gathered, holding candles, signs, and each other. They chanted Marcus's name, demanding justice not just for him, but for all who had suffered similar fates. At a rally downtown, Marcus's commanding officer spoke passionately. He's a hero on the battlefield and a hero here at home. This incident is a stain on our community and a call to action. Meanwhile, the investigation took a deeper dive. Body cam footage revealed moments of confusion, fear, and hesitation. The officer's split-second decision came from a place of bias, not fact. Community meetings grew more frequent. Dialogue replaced silence. Marcus's story became a rallying point for reform advocates. But through the noise, Marcus remained focused on healing. Physically, mentally, emotionally. He attended counseling sessions, sharing his experience to help others cope with trauma. His family's strength became his anchor. Together, they envisioned a future where this nightmare would be history. A future built on understanding, respect, and justice. As Marcus continued his recovery, the city's attention shifted towards meaningful change. Police departments across the region adopted new training focused on bias recognition and de-escalation techniques. Community policing initiatives gained renewed funding. Marcus was invited to speak at seminars and panels, sharing his experience with officers and civilians alike. He spoke not as a victim, but as a catalyst for awareness and growth. I'm not here to condemn, but to educate, he often said. His story reminded officers that behind every uniform is a person, and that person deserves respect. His advocacy inspired the creation of a task force dedicated to reviewing all use-of-force incidents in the city. Legislators introduced bills aimed at increasing accountability and transparency. For Marcus, these efforts represented hope, not just for himself, but for future generations. One evening, he returned to the hospital where he had been treated. He met with medical staff, thanked them personally, and shared his vision of healing beyond the physical. His presence was a testament to resilience and to the power of standing tall, even when the world tries to pull you down. The public's response deepened as the investigation progressed. Social media campaigns pushed for justice. Local news aired stories highlighting systemic problems in policing. Civil rights organizations mobilized, organizing town halls and community forums. Marcus's family became central figures in the movement, sharing their story to inspire change. Despite the intense spotlight, Marcus remained humble. He focused on the details of his rehabilitation, the slow but steady return of strength. Each physical therapy session was a reminder of his determination. One afternoon, during a session, his therapist asked, "How do you stay motivated through all this?" Marcus smiled faintly. Because this isn't just about me. It's about every person who's ever been stopped, searched, or feared because of the color of their skin. The therapist nodded. And in that moment, Marcus knew his story had transcended his own pain. It had become a beacon, a call to action, and a reminder that healing is both personal and collective. Weeks later, Marcus stood before a packed auditorium. Military personnel, law enforcement officers, community leaders, and civilians gathered to hear his story. He spoke with quiet strength, recounting the night that changed his life. His words carried the weight of experience but also the lightness of hope. I was trained to protect, he said, but I was nearly destroyed by those sworn to protect me. He challenged those in uniform to reflect, to look beyond fear, to see humanity, to remember that courage isn't just on the battlefield, it's in every encounter. His speech was met with standing ovations and heartfelt applause. Afterwards, officers approached him, some with tears, others with gratitude. He became a mentor, an advocate, a bridge between communities often divided by suspicion. His recovery continued, but his mission was clear: to turn a moment of tragedy into a lifetime of change. Because sometimes, the greatest battles are fought not with weapons, but with words. And Marcus Reed was ready to fight. In the months that followed, Marcus's story inspired legislative action. Lawmakers introduced bills aimed at reforming police training and accountability. Funding increased for programs that encouraged dialogue between officers and the communities they serve. Marcus worked closely with advocacy groups, sharing insights on trauma, bias, and the path to healing. He emphasized the importance of empathy, something that couldn't be taught in a classroom, but lived in every encounter. Community leaders credited his courage with sparking a new wave of awareness. Yet, despite the progress, Marcus remained grounded. He continued his therapy, his physical rehabilitation, and his legal work. Each day was a step toward wholeness, a reminder that recovery is neither linear nor swift. But with support and determination, it was possible. His journey became a testament to resilience and a symbol of hope for those still fighting similar battles. Marcus's influence grew beyond local boundaries. Invitations to speak at national conferences arrived. His story was taught in law enforcement academies as a case study in the dangers of racial bias and the power of accountability. He met with other survivors of police violence, building networks of support and advocacy. Together, they worked to create resources for officers and civilians alike. Marcus's dedication inspired new generations of leaders committed to justice. Still, he never lost sight of the personal cost. He cherished quiet moments with his family. He valued the simple joys: a walk in the park, a shared meal, a laugh with friends. These moments reminded him why the fight mattered. Because behind every statistic was a life, complex, valuable, and irreplaceable. And Marcus Reed's life was a story of survival, courage, and transformation. A story still unfolding. The ripple effect of Marcus's story touched many lives. Community organizations used it to build bridges between residents and law enforcement. Schools incorporated discussions about implicit bias and justice into their curricula. Local media featured stories highlighting the human impact of systemic failures. Marcus received letters from people across the country. Parents worried for their children. Young adults seeking guidance. Officers questioning their own perspectives. Each message reinforced the importance of his mission. One letter stood out, a note from a teenager. "Your story gave me hope. It showed me that change is possible." Marcus kept that letter close. A reminder that even amidst tragedy, light could emerge. He believed deeply that change was not just necessary, it was inevitable. And as he prepared for the next phase of his journey, he carried that hope like armor, ready to face whatever came next. Time passed, but Marcus never forgot the night that almost ended his life. He used his experience to challenge systems entrenched in fear and misunderstanding. He advocated for comprehensive reforms, better training, community engagement, mental health resources. His voice became a beacon, guiding policymakers and law enforcement toward change. He also mentored young soldiers and officers, sharing lessons on resilience and empathy. At public forums, he stressed the need to humanize every interaction. Behind every uniform is a person with hopes, fears, and a story, he would say. His message resonated deeply. Communities began to see police not just as enforcers, but as partners. And officers started to recognize the weight of their actions beyond the badge. Marcus's journey wasn't just about survival. It was about transformation. For himself, for the system, for the future. Years later, Marcus stood once again on the highway where it all began. But this time, he was not a victim. He was a leader, surrounded by community members, fellow veterans, and law enforcement officers committed to change. The road ahead was still long, but the path was clearer. His story had become a catalyst, a beacon illuminating the urgent need for justice and understanding. As he looked to the horizon, Marcus felt a deep sense of purpose, knowing that from pain, resilience can grow. From tragedy, hope can rise. And from a single moment of fear, a lifetime of change can begin.